Welcome back to theCUBE, here at our studio at the New York Stock Exchange. This is our Mixture of Experts series in collaboration with NYSE Wired. And over the next couple of weeks, we are going to be talking to some of the leaders and speakers taking the stage at the AI Agent Conference in New York this coming May. Joining me now is one such leader, Irina Denisenko, CEO of Knox Systems. Welcome, Irina.
Thank you, Gemma, so much for having me.
So before we get to the whole world of agentic AI and all of the promise and peril that might bring, first tell me, Knox Systems, they say that sometimes you have to feel the pain to see the opportunity. I think that was certainly your story.
Absolutely.
Fill us in on what led you to create this company and the journey you've been on.
Thank you for having me, first of all, and absolutely. Maybe the first thing I'll say just in one line, what does Knox do? Knox runs the largest FedRAMP managed cloud. And what that means is we are able to get SaaS companies FedRAMP authorized in 90 days for 90% off of what it costs to do it on your own. And FedRAMP, for those that don't know, is the standard that you have to meet as a SaaS provider in order to serve the federal government, the DOW, and really anyone in the government. It's really the Olympics of cloud security, if you will.
For sure.
So the TLDR on how did I get here was I previously was the co-founder and chief operating officer of Class.com, one of the largest synchronous learning companies still out there today. And long story short, I had to acquire a company to get myself FedRAMP, to get Class.com FedRAMP. When the Air Force came to us and wanted to use our technology, and acquiring a company was literally the fastest way to do it. It was not the cheapest, but it was the fastest way to do it. The current process takes 3 years and $3 million to do.
Insane.
It is a massive investment, and that's, before you see a single dollar in business from the government.
And tell me, why is it such a brick wall? Like, it's also quite a lengthy policy. It's been in place for quite a while now, right? And it was born at a very different time in the evolution of tech. Is it that things haven't changed much in the last 11 years, or why is this so notoriously difficult still?
Absolutely. Well, FedRAMP is about 15 years old now, came out in 2011, and indeed, it was a very different cloud world back then, right? AWS was not even referred to as a hyperscaler. This was, I would say 2009, even into 2011, not all of us were still comfortable putting our credit card into a web page online. Now, obviously, fast forward to 2026, we pay with our face on our phone, right? So things have definitely changed. FedRAMP has kept up in some ways in terms of the major security standards that you have to adopt. For example, supply chain integrity. But why is the process so long? It really comes down to a few things. One, you need to have U.S. citizens on U.S. soil touching production. That's a huge part of this. So it's a logistical challenge for a lot of companies who are global, right? There's phenomenal companies out of Israel, out of Europe. Even within the United States, a lot of our workforce is not necessarily U.S. citizens. They might be green card holders, et cetera. From a technology perspective, it is a massive investment to build out basically a new enclave of your technology, of your application, launch it into a brand new instance that is completely isolated from your commercial code, and then continue to maintain that. And third, you need to bring in the same way that if you were, a financial company and you're going out for IPO, right, or any sort of big financial transaction, M&A, you're going to need your financials audited by an auditing firm, so a big four. In the FedRAMP world, in the cloud security world, that's called a third-party assessor. And then you need it audited in, let's call it just in taxes, you'll need it audited by the IRS. Or for an IPO, you'll need it audited by the SEC. Same thing for us, we need it audited by the FedRAMP agency, the FedRAMP department. All of that takes time, right? Wow. It is a very long process to get all of the shape of the application understood, and for ultimately a CISO in the government to accept the cybersecurity risk from a brand new vendor, right? You come in, you're an application, hey, I'm backed by, XYZ awesome investors, I'm 5 years old, I'm doing amazing stuff. Cool. As far as the government's concerned, they have no idea who you are, right? Sure. How do they know what your security posture is? How do they know that you're doing what you say you do? The way they know is FedRAMP, and it's just a very long and tenuous process, and their starting point is they start with, I don't trust you, right? Zero trust came from the government originally, and zero trust architecture, and so they start from the position of, I don't trust you, and so prove to me why I should trust you and should put my data with you, whether that's IRS data, whether that taxpayer data, whether that's VA healthcare data, it's obviously the biggest healthcare system in the world, whether it's DOW data from the Marines, from the Air Force, from the Army, you name it. That is what you're asking the government to do. So it's understandable that it takes so long and it's so painful, but that's why, you know, there needed to be a faster way, because at the end of the day, the government's got less than 500 apps that it can use. I mean, that's the fewer apps than are on your iPhone today is what the government has access to for cybersecurity, for HR tooling, for collaboration, you know, kind of Atlassian, Jira, Monday.com type stuff, for healthcare IT. I mean, literally pick any category of software across all of them. In total, there are 500 apps. That's insane. Yeah. There's 10,000 apps on AWS Marketplace.
And especially considering how fast tech is evolving, right, and how competitive the landscape is becoming too, even from a cost perspective, right? Yeah. But so I get it. It's governance is very administratively heavy. There's a lot of company structural requirements alone, even in terms of how you file, etc., and location. So talk me through the profile of some of the clients that you work with. Like, absolutely. You know, you're a SaaS player, you want to do some work with the DoD or whoever it is. Give us some, bring it to life for us.
Sure. So we are so honored to serve some of just the most innovative and exciting technology companies out there today. One of our longest standing customers and partners has been Adobe. And so we've served them for well over 10 years now with the kind of the origin of the company. But more recently in the last year, as we've opened this up to more than just Adobe, we've brought on Celonis, who's obviously, you know, almost $1 billion in revenue, process mining, process intelligence, and AI. We've brought on Armis, who obviously just, you know, got acquired by ServiceNow for almost $8 billion. OutSystems, which is $500 million low-code, no-code provider. What I refer to them as the adults in the room for vibe coding, right? Because they've really been here for 20 years in this space. And just a ton others. Backup, Capgemini, Synity, Peregrine, Veniver Labs. It's really a phenomenal mix of, I would say, very established commercial, you know, SaaS vendors, as well, who have been struggling to achieve FedRAMP and bring all of the, you know, fantastic technology that they have to agencies, as well as what I'll call scale-ups and you know, folks just hitting that 100 million roughly mark. You know, a great example of that is Big ID, who is on our FedRAMP cloud. It's you know, how do you make AI make sense? Well, you first figure out where all your data is, and that's how you train your AI models. That's what Big ID does, right?
So some of those players, you would imagine, can throw a lot of money at a lot of problems, right? It seems to me as though those are huge names in industry, highly capable, huge brands, but still a struggle, I guess, to make this a succinct and easy process to navigate. Talk to me a little bit about the graduation process for this. You provide the guardrails, you provide the environment, you provide the access.
Correct.
You know, what percentage of your clients do you, envision will become completely 100% autonomous in the FedRAMP process, or do you see yourself as like a long-term service provider to this ecosystem?
It's a great question. You know, ultimately when you think about what is it that we do, we run an AI managed cloud. And why is that valuable? Well, today it's certainly valuable because, well, we unlock FedRAMP. You know, what I like to say to folks is, if FedRAMP is a very exclusive zip code, and to move into that zip code, it's 3 years, it's $3 million if you can get a permit, and this is key to the question you're asking. The permit is the federal sponsor, right? Going back to that CISO who's going to sign the piece of paper that says, yes, I'm sponsoring, I am taking on the risk of this application. Knox, and our competitor, you know, Palantir, FedStart, for example, what we do is we run a luxury condo building on Main Street, and our customers move into units in that building. Why is that valuable long term, right? You might think, well, you know, when you move into the big city as a young kid, you move into an apartment, but eventually you'll want to get your own house, right? So why wouldn't folks want to get your own house? Well, I would say it's the same reason that, you know, well, why does IBM have a multi-$100 million billion-dollar managed cloud business. Why does Dell have, I know Michael Dell was just here, right? Why does Dell have a huge managed cloud business? It actually comes down to one very fundamental trait of, I think, just humans. This has actually little to do with technology even, and that is people don't want to do hard stuff. If someone else raises their hand and says, hey, you know those CVEs, those 10.0 CVEs, which by the way, in the age of AI, we've had more CVEs in the last 6 months than we've had in the last 6 years, right? So I mean, the hackers are hacking, right? Whether it's rogue nations, script kiddies, like AI is here and it is actively pummeling every piece of software. If you raise your hand and say, hey, those 10.0 CVEs that pop up on a Saturday at 3 in the morning, I'll take care of those for you, rather than you having to take care of those. Folks will assuming they trust you could do it, and you've proven you can do it, folks will run to hand off the grunt work of running a secure cloud environment, because it's hard. It's hard, which is why, for us, it's really been about, it's actually been less about finding folks who are interested in getting FedRAMP and staying FedRAMPed and so on. It's been more about how do we ensure that we can remediate autonomously extremely fast. Speed matters when it comes to responding to incidents. Speed matters when it comes to responding to vulnerabilities. And that's why ultimately folks are in no hurry to take back that responsibility of being on these extremely tight service SLAs, these deadlines, every time there's a finding of whether it's a vulnerability or so on. And so we don't see any of our customers leaving to go do it themselves, because it's the same reason why you don't see anyone saying, you know what I feel like doing? I'm going to build my own data center. I'm not going to host in AWS. I would like to worry about whether my servers are staying online and the cooling doesn't turn off and the rat hasn't chewed through the cables. That seems like a great use of my engineer's time. It's like, no, you just want to give that to AWS and focus on building your app. That's what we enable folks to do. We let the builders build, and we take care of the production security layer. Again, today we're 100% focused on FedRAMP, but over time, we certainly see our customers coming to us with this request, which is, hey, can you run not just our federal production environment, but can you run our financial services production environment, our healthcare production environment, and so on. That's a lot of what we'll talk about at the AI Agent Conference.
There's a lot of repeatability, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of pattern recognition built into those processes.
Security is security, right? And when you do the Olympics of cloud security, kind of walking down the mountain is easier than walking up it.
100%. So let's talk about this market moment. You mentioned some of the very interesting occurrences over the last 6 months alone. If you think about the world 11 years ago in terms of what government was protecting from, right, and for, to now, 2026, the world of AI, superintelligence, agentic, it seems as though that lines of attack have shifted fundamentally in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
From a technology perspective, talk me through what you're seeing, what you're building, what sort of vulnerabilities you are addressing.
I love this question. So it's interesting, when the original FedRAMP guidance was written, now it's been revised over time, but a lot of the DNA is still there. It was written for protecting paper files in file cabinets.
Great.
Right? Which is, what was information security before the internet? It was, files in file cabinets and safes and things like that. Obviously, a lot's changed in the last 20 years, certainly in the last 15 years. And so what we're seeing a huge focus on is, one, indeed, how do you've got this, in our case, you've got this self-driving infrastructure, or at least the building towards self-driving infrastructure. Okay, how do you ensure that AI is not being poisoned? How do you ensure that, you're leveraging Anthropic, you're leveraging OpenAI, you're leveraging Gemini. How are you ensuring that you've got guardrails on those foundational models? How are you ensuring that any models that you yourself are building are locked down? So that's certainly one big piece. Another huge trend is there's a lot of talk about supply chain risk management. We've seen a huge shift, and we're big partners with these guys as well, into hardened images, right? That's why you see ChainGuard just doing so well. You see companies like Rapidfork doing so well for a good reason, right? They're taking on the burden of saying, hey, I'll give you this image, and I'm going to worry about remediating the CVEs. You just worried about building your software. So those have been fantastic. The challenge that we've seen, kind of maybe to bring it up a level, is the government sometimes still thinks about things, again, not in cloud terms, but more in physical goods. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's been a big push on something called SBOM, software bill of materials, of course, but taking an approach that makes sense for a tank, right? When you deconstruct the components of a tank, you want to know the provenance of every single chip and every single screw and so on. So you want to make sure that obviously China hasn't touched this and North Korea hasn't touched this and so on and so forth, and that makes sense. Well, if you try to do the same thing and deconstruct a piece of software, you're going to find a lot of open source libraries. And in that case, I with 100% certainty will tell you that China did touch this and North Korea did touch this, because it's open source. It's the internet. Everyone gets to touch it. That's kind of the beauty of what makes it also so secure, because everyone's hitting it, and offense and defense is happening from all sides all the time. So where that moves the government is what we've seen as a tremendous uptick in adopting CNAPs, Wiz, CrowdStrike, even kind of I would say more modern versions of Tenable, which has been awesome to see, because I will tell you, we are huge users of all of those tools, because that is the only way you get a true continuous picture. One of the latest, biggest changes, if you will, that we're seeing, which we're very happy to see, is the government is going from once a year audits and once a month check-ins on your cybersecurity posture to real-time monitoring and asking for a picture, a snapshot of the security posture of the vendors that are holding their data in real time. Give it to me over an API, as opposed to how it's still happening today, which is literally I show up, my team shows up to our what's called continuous monitoring meetings with our agencies. These are our sponsors. We come with a spreadsheet of all of our vulnerabilities that have been detected in the last month and anything that's still open from prior months. We talk about the spreadsheet. We then upload the spreadsheet into a system called USDA. Then on the government side, they download the spreadsheet and then they file it away somewhere, and that's kind of how we keep each other accountable on, are we doing the thing. Obviously, the second you leave that meeting, it is stale, right? We move at the speed of internet, right?
An ongoing commitment and dialogue, right? There's a lot of management in that too, I'm sure.
So moving to real time is the key. And the only way you can move to real time and still understand the volume of data is you need AI, right?
Yeah.
A human is not going to read that. They're not even reading the current stuff. And, and that's once a month. If you need, terabytes and terabytes of data every minute, it's too much.
Let's talk for a second about AI inside FedRAMP and AI at a government level broadly, right? Like, we've seen and heard a lot about the race against China, the AI wars, if you like, and the fact that a lot of very prolific people feel like, the US is certainly at risk of maybe not being where we should be in that race, right? Who knows what's true, but that's certainly a narrative that's circulating. At the same time, we need regulation, we need security, we need to ensure that, to your point, these open source opportunities that are potentially coming into government systems in a way that makes government more effective, faster, etc., are still safeguarded, right?
Right.
So what are you seeing from the perspective of new types of companies, new types of opportunities, and perhaps even some missed opportunities for particular services and offerings that government could use but perhaps doesn't right now because of policy requirements like FedRAMP? Like, if you were to say, there's a whole market segment I need to go after, what would it be?
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, the good news is it's literally, there's tooling everywhere that is totally shut out of this market because of FedRAMP. But I'll give you maybe a very specific cybersecurity example. So there is a whole crop of just, I'll just use like a more colloquial term, but just cracked research teams, cyber research teams that are absolutely on the bleeding edge of finding the latest and greatest just mapping the threat landscape and finding the latest vulnerabilities before even the whizzes of the world and the CrowdStrikes of the world are finding them. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the most recent additions to the Knox environment is a company called Aikido. They've raised a decent amount of money now at this point, so maybe $100 or so million. So they're well funded, well backed, and they were the team that found the Shah Halud vulnerability back in Thanksgiving. It was a 10.0 CVE. It was the vulnerability within React. It was a not so fun Sunday and Monday and Tuesday after Thanksgiving for the cyber community, for those of us responding to it in real time. But they found it before anyone. They then published they published it. They found it, they published the research with Wiz. Obviously the entire industry kind of froze and was like, okay, we got to patch this, and we all moved very quickly. That's the type of solutions you want the US government to have, right? Because indeed, in the AI race, agreed, there's theories on both sides of the equation, or both sides of the argument of, is America behind, is China behind? It's probably a mix of both. Some days we're ahead, and some days they're ahead. But it's certainly not a gulf between us. Like it does seem like we are neck and neck. You want the US government to have the absolute latest, the absolute greatest tooling. And the thing that folks need to understand is, folks say, well, why don't you just run a model fully air-gapped, fully on-prem? Well, the problem is that model loses access to the internet.
And it wouldn't have the opportunity of telemetry, right? It wouldn't benefit from the basics.
That's right. And also the how do these models learn? They need the internet to learn. If you starve it of data, if you put it in this air-gapped box, it will only you've put a limit on it. You have to embrace the full power of the tooling out there, the full power of the applications out there, because China's embracing them. And so I would say, if I had to pick one, it would be these absolutely bleeding edge, new technique cyber companies that are AI native themselves. And that's, in lots of cases, why they're able to find something even before I would consider Wiz AI native. I mean, they're only 4 or 5 years old, right? And somehow they're being outrun by a much smaller team. Well, it's because they're just closer to the latest and greatest.
Well, Irina, looking forward to having you at the AI Agent Conference in May, hopefully seeing some very interesting conversation you're going to have on stage.
Yes.
Tell me, between now and then, what's ahead for you and the team? Sounds like you have a busy couple of months.
Yes.
Close us out with the plans.
Absolutely. So, well, first, we're so excited to be at the conference. We're going to be with our Federal Advisory Board member, Chad Tetrault. He is the Federal and Public Sector CTO at Zscaler and just left Department of Homeland Security as their Deputy CTO and Chief AI Officer. And so he is extremely plugged into where Zscaler, but also where DHS and the whole government is on AI SOC, on offensive security, and so on. Over at Knox, of course, you will see a number of our customers who have already graduated, talking about all of the agencies that they're serving. We're now up to 10 plus agencies that have deployed with applications on our cloud, which is incredible to see in just 6 months. You'll see a number of announcements around some additional kind of partners and so on that are coming to the table, which are coming very soon here. And we're doubling the team. And so we're making huge investments in offensive security, in building out the brain, so in our core engineering team to build out Knox AI, and certainly the entire company around it. So very exciting times ahead. Look, last thing I'll say is our mission, very simply, is to unlock access to cutting edge technology for the US government. And there is nothing more cutting edge than AI, and so we're so excited to serve so many AI first, AI native, cloud native companies, and we're excited to talk to all of them at the AI Agent Conference, because we want this government to have the access to the absolute best and cutting edge, and this is the way to do it.
Well, we're excited to follow your journey. Wish you all the best over the next couple of months, and see you in May.
Thank you so much.
This is Mixture of Experts, one of our NYSE Wired programs. Thanks so much for watching.